sustainable practice for quality production. So before we go in further to the topic, I would like for us to look into reality aspect of climate change, adaptation, mitigation, and specific solution. When we say climate change is sort of weather events in a particular area. In Nigeria like this, we have different agroecological zone where we experience different weather conditions at the same time. So we have the southwest, southeast, the north central, and the middle belt. So in this particular region, we have different crops that thrive best in this region. And for me, we focus more on the north, from the north central. So the north central even have some weather that is different. We have the highly tropic weather that is more harsh, and we have the one that is a little bit friendly. So growing fruit and vegetable production in this kind of area can be very challenging if traditional practices are still adapted. Moving further, then what's next farmer needs to understand is the need for mitigation practice and adaptation. Mitigation simply means when we try to ameliorate the effects of climate change, looking forward to local source solutions, idea, expertise, and finding solution within our local environments. It might take you like 2 years, like 2 cycles to understand a particular agroecological zone. Apart from historical data, history from farmers that have practiced cultivation in that area before, you still need to have a specific trial in that location and to ascertain the information that has been given to you. So, moving further for climate mitigation, in a situation where we want to focus on fruit and vegetable production that starts with nursery production, choice of seed, site selection, and propagation techniques. One of the silent points farmer needs to consider is your crop calendar. The traditional cropping calendar is the one we used to choose for from rainy season, this is what we are going to cultivate. For dry season, this is what we are going to cultivate. But in the presence of climate change, your cropping calendar needs to be adjusted based on the relative climate events that has been recorded in a particular region. Mind you, you can be in a location like Abuja. Your cropping calendar doesn't supposed to be the same for a location like Kano or Sokoto, even though they are both the North Central. We experience different weather conditions at different degree level, and this can affect your quality crop production. To proceed further, as an agronomist, improved cropping calendar is paramount before you start your production. Looking at the weather events like Abuja, March, April is one of the most hottest parts of the climate events, and this affects fruiting production, pollination, and quality of your vegetables. So, transplanting at this stage can be very detrimental and can be a loss of investments at this hot period. At the same time, a cropping calendar that is scheduled to start pollination or fruiting, early fruiting stage, at this stage can be very detrimental, even under a greenhouse condition. So what's next? That is climate adaptation. The adaptation practice, one of it is designing an effective cropping calendar that is suitable, adaptable, and has the capacity to mitigate the effects of climate change in that locality. After accepting a improved cropping calendar, the next thing is to now go for choice of seed. This comes to your selection practice. There are many seeds that have been available, but as an experienced agronomist, it is important for you. There are for high-tech greenhouse, low-tech greenhouse, and for open feed. Selecting an high-tech greenhouse, and using a high-quality seed for a low-tech greenhouse or an open feed can be a very wrong decision, because this crop has been programmed genetically to be in a particular environmental condition. Therefore, it is important to also note that selecting your choice of seed is important to also consider your growing medium. What are the kind of greenhouse? Are you propagating in protected cultivation or a feed or an open feed? This guides you in your choice of seed. Next to it is your propagation techniques. It is very important, after you've been able to design a good cropping calendar that match the relative weather condition of that location. The next to it is your growing medium, selecting a good growing house, maybe based on the seed, depending on choice of crop and available fund. You understand? If you are going for open feed cultivation, you might decide to go for a seed that is commonly for an average farmers. If you are going for a locally fabricated greenhouse, it is important you go for a medium seed resistance. But when you're going for a high-tech greenhouse, you can go for a more sensitive seed that tends to give you what you want at a very short period of time. The reverse is the case when you want to go for other choice of cultivation. You understand, in terms of growing medium, it is important you match it very well. Next to adaptation, mitigation as a result of climate change is now a good propagation techniques. Your good propagation techniques as an experienced agronomist come in place when you try to understand the physiological stage of your crop. Sometimes there might be available nutrients in the soil, or the conditions seem so favorable to the plant, and the crop tends to grow beyond the expected crop cycle. That sometimes you experience a seed germinating earlier than the expected days of germination, bringing this true leaf, next to it bringing the branches, canopy. At that stage, as an agronomist, you don't wait for the normal regime. You have to follow the crop based on its physiological growth. You understand? A crop that has been showing a flower head, maybe at 4 weeks after transplanting. You understand? Based on your choice of seed and your growing medium. You understand? It shows that maybe traditionally, based on your basic experience or your basic knowledge might tell you that that crop might need a particular fertilizer at 6 weeks. But noticing that crop physiology characteristics, it shows you that there is a particular need for a fertilizer or a nutrient that these plants will need at this stage of this physiological characters. Just like human, we tend to mature differently, and crop also exhibits these characteristics. And that is part of specific solution toward your adaptation techniques to changes, environmental conditions, and your crop improvements. Having said that, the next to this is administration of your fertilizer. Your administration of your fertilizer takes place in different stages. There are some you have to incorporate into your soil during land preparation, like phosphorus fertilizer. This can come in both organic and inorganic fertilizer, you understand. Based on your soil analysis you've done that has ascertained the level of available nutrients for the soil in respect to the choice of crop you intend to cultivate. Incorporation of organic manure can also be adopted. This helps to improve the soil texture and also allow it to retain moisture very well. It is important to also note that as a result of climate change, increase in temperature, it is very important to always keep our soil moisture at an appropriate level that will reduce the rate of evapotranspiration for crops and also supports the need of the proper physiological characteristics of crop to perform well. Now, after we've incorporated some fertilizer during land preparation, there is, apart from you designing your cropping calendar, there is also need for you to design your fertilizer regimen. Your fertilizer regimen guides you to avoid over-dependence of synthetic fertilizer. It also guides you to improve your soil fertility requirements. This will allow you to do your fertilizer check before planting. And at every cycle of after crop production, you can also do your fertilizer check to know what you have left. And this will guide you in choice of crop rotation that you might need to adapt to improve your soil fertility in a natural way. After saying this of we adopting a good propagation technique, coming to your fertilizer regimen, designing a good fertilizer regimen that tells you at so stage of your crop, you administer fertilizer based on the crop development stage. After understanding that, the next thing for you to do as part of specific climate mitigation, adaptation practice is also to always go for fertilizer utilization check. After you've applied fertilizer, it is important for you to go in, check in your soil, and know that if that fertilizer has been really dissolved for plants to be able to take it up. Most at times, sometimes these fertilizers are not properly dissolved, meaning these fertilizers are only in the soil as a substance, but not as a solvent solution. Because you're assuming you've applied a fertilizer that's supposed to be used by crop, but maybe the placement of the fertilizer was not rightly done. You avoid your 4R, your right place, your right source, your right time, and your right quantity. If these 4 stewards are not put in place, fertilizer application for that particular crop might be waste. And this now may result to soil toxicity, building more of salt content of the soil. You understand? Because these fertilizers are applied and they are not dissolved, and farmers taking of their moisture, adjusting their irrigation. Station has been adopted, then you tend to see a good crop performance. Hello? Okay. Hello, please, can you hear me? Can I continue? Okay, please, can I continue? Can you just send me an emoji if I can continue, please? Okay, thank you. So, having said that, regarding fertilizer regimen, designing a proper fertilizer regimen, applying the first keyword of fertilizer. The next thing for farmers, agronomists, grower to consider is the right soil moisture maintenance. Let's take lettuce, for example. Lettuce is a leafy vegetable that requires high intake of nitrogen, good phosphorus for root development, and good potassium for this to thrive best in the harsh environmental condition, as same well as calcium. So, drip irrigation is supposed to be the best, but in a very hot climatic environmental condition like Abuja, growing lettuce using drip irrigation in a specific location might not be the best solution because the water that will be available might not be enough. The rate of evapotranspiration is very, very high, even at the expense of the use of organic mulching, because we totally depend on the leaf heads, the heading of the lettuce. In that case, it is expected you can switch your irrigation equipment. For during wet season crop production, if you are using maybe like a screen net, Greenhouse has stages. We have the complete greenhouse, while we have other locally fabricated one here in Nigeria where you make use of screen nets to reduce the rate of evapotranspiration. So in these places, you can make use of micro sprinkler. The micro sprinkler, number one, it gives the crop a sense of a cool environment that allow them to have a good crop growth. You understand? It reduces that abiotic stress that crop tend to experience as a result of harsh environmental condition. So part of your propagation techniques is understanding how to maintain your soil moisture. Sometimes it must not be a specific way. It's on properly understanding what is the reality in your location. When you understand the reality of the weather, the rate of evapotranspiration, the water requirement of your crop, and the root development of your crop. So is it a lateral root? Is it a fibrous root? When you understand this, it guides you in how to maintain its soil moisture. So micro sprinkler might be the best for a farmer in that location. Maybe in Southwest, where it is relative warm, the farmer can adopt a drip irrigation. So in a very, very hot environmental condition, micro sprinkler might still not be enough, and maybe they might need the overhead sprinkler. Number one, this overhead sprinkler, it creates this relative humid that makes farm to feel that makes crop to feel cool. You understand? Despite the harsh environmental condition. For a farmer that could not set up this irrigation equipment, you can think of adopting shade cropping. Before you can adopt a shade cropping, it is best you understand the height of your crop to know what kind of two-sister relationship you want to create for your crop. If you have a crop that will be taller than the choice of shrubs or shade you want to adopt, this might not be making any effect. But when you have a low head crop, maybe like lettuce, rocket, radish, you might think of using a tall shade plant, like a fencing around. This can help in mitigating the effects of the climate change. Now, we've been able to discuss how you mitigate the effect of climate change by maintaining adequate soil moisture through knowing very well of the right quantity of water requirements your crop actually needs to perform best in respect to the environmental condition. The next thing you need to understand again is abiotic stress. They are important key elements of nutrients, majorly micronutrients most times, that will support plants to thrive best in these environmental conditions. So as an agronomist managing a farm, it is important for you to be able to identify these key elements when purchasing input from vendors to avoid investing in inputs that are not really needed by your crop. So, and this go back to your fertilizer regimen charts. When designing your fertilizer regimen charts, part of what you put in your calendar chart are days you use for foliar spray. And this foliar spray encompasses mainly your major fertilizer requirements for your crop, your biostimulants, and growth regulators. This will support your plants in doing best. Having said that, recapping for what I've said earlier, number one is first to understand the relative environment, the weather events of the particular location you want to cultivate in, your choice of crop, and designing an improved cropping calendar that match best for your specific location for growing. Having chosen your improved cropping calendar, the next thing for you to understand is to choose a good growing medium. Good growing medium depends on your weather condition, available resources, funds, available seeds, and your choice of markets, your targeted markets. So if farmers can have this information, and extension workers, agronomists can also incorporate these ideas in their crop production practice, will seem to achieve more quality production in the horticultural sector. Proceeding further, the next thing an agronomist, a farmer, a grower needs to consider is pest and disease management. In most of the time, we advocate for a balanced, eco-friendly pesticide spray. It is important for an agronomist or a crop protection specialist managing a farm to first undergo an ecology study of the relative pests, common pests, disease that are prevailing to a particular location that they will be cultivating their crop. When you take a study of your relative occurrence or prevailing disease, pest and disease attack that has been happening, occurring, or what you've experienced, it gives you a proper guide in choosing the right pesticide selection. This comes about to your pesticide spray chart. Designing a good pesticide spray chart will prevent an agronomist from having a pesticide residue effect. Because when designing this pesticide chart, it will make you, number one, to choose carefully in selecting pests that might be of the same organic group. You understand? Because they might have different common name, but they contain the same chemical compound. But when you understand the pesticide group properly, you might not decide you will be able to design a good pesticide spray chart that will be eco-friendly for crop production. Having been said that, as a green advocate and sustainable agricultural specialist, it is important to also understand that pesticide spray should be the last, inorganic pesticide spray should always be the last solution in places where there is repeated occurrence of a pest and disease attack. Number one, identifying the culprits, the pathogens, or the insects affecting your crop is the prerequisite to know how to tackle it. Number two, a collective spraying habit should be encouraged among farmers. When you practice a crop production in a place that there is more than 1 to 2 group of farmers, it is important there is a collective effort where there will be a regulated days of spraying. This will allow you to have a good control of the pest or disease affecting your crops. For a commercial farmers that majorly go into a large crop production, it is important to also note that some agrarian areas that are left uncultivated can always serve as a host, affecting your major crop of interest. Therefore, these agrarian areas that are not cultivated can be used for ornamental cultivations. These ornamental cultivations can help in promoting more of natural bees, which also help in as a predators for other pests. So also planting of repellent crops around a place, a particular field crop or plot that are not yet being in use for cultivation can also help. For greenhouse cultivation that might practice a close cultivation, it is important we also take notes of particular pests that might be affecting your locality. So, recapping of what I've said earlier, number one, the key point is designing an improved cropping calendar. Understanding the relative weather environment in a particular locations will assist you better in knowing the choice of crop. Choosing the right growing medium. Your right growing medium depends on funds and also available resources. For Nigerians farmers, it is important we understand that the greenhouse techniques choice of growing that we've aimed to adopt as a result of climate change and to meet our targeted market, it is now important for us to look into designing a greenhouse structure that will really fit our land terrain. Most at times, most greenhouses that are designed when there is a very high wind storm, maybe at the early part of rainy season, there is always a big loss of investment. Therefore, innovations like this need to be look further for improvement. Therefore, checking our land terrain, the rate of topography, the wind, you understand, in a particular location, and investors should be ready to pay for designing a greenhouse structure that will fit in their agroecological zone. Therefore, for open field farmers, they also experience a lot of loss as a result of high rainfall temperature. High rainfall, because sometimes we tend to experience in a continuous rainfall that results of flooding of crops. As an agronomist, it is important you also seek the knowledge of other expertise, engineers, and sometimes in designing your farming structure, whereby there will be in as much protection. So these are the key points I've been able to gather to support us effectively and supporting our crop production. Thank you, everyone. And I would like to take
That was a very, very detailed discussion, Ms. Nafesat. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you very much for so much detail. Any questions from all the participants? So, uh, what does your organization do, Nafisat? Can you hear me?
I'm trying to check for one or two questions, but I could not see any for now.
Yeah, there don't seem to be any questions. I was asking you, what does your organization do? What does GreenPivot do?
Hello, what you say?
I'm saying, what does your organization do?
Okay, it's majorly focused on quality information sharing for farmers, also providing them inputs and agri consultant service.
I see. Okay, that's nice. So great. Any questions, please? Ritiman?
Okay, yes. And Najima asks that if we add more fertilizer than what is required, it gets leached into the soil and finally into the water source. Am I right? Yes, that's very right. When we add too much of fertilizer than what the crop needs, the crop only take what it needs, and the others can be leached out into a water source, which can also lead to another disaster. So it is best we maintain the first keyword of fertilizer application: right source, right placing, right quantity, and right timing.
You mentioned about the micro sprinklers. Can you share a little bit more about those?
Okay, you said micro.
Sprinklers you were talking about, right?
Yes, a micro sprinkler. It's it's more. We have micro sprinkler. We have the overhead sprinkler. The micro sprinkler is more of, it's not as the height. It's just the height that make it different. Majorly, the height is more low to the crop, while an overhead sprinklers, that one is more of it has a more height. You understand that it cover a more canopy, more swat width for irrigation. But if you are maintaining a very close plot of land, you can look into a micro sprinkler irrigation. So that it depends on the level of evapotranspiration, how what quantity we or what the crops, the water leaves your crops, you understand, and how the weather environment also matters. So you just have to keep cooling and for them to be more relative depending on the crop. Some crop, even in this dry season, will not tolerate a overhead irrigation like cucumber. Cucumber will maintain a drip irrigation because it doesn't even like anything like water touching its leaves. You understand? It should come in result to more of bacterial disease. So you maintain more of drip irrigation and more of mulching, maybe like organic mulching to maintain the soil moisture.
Okay, thank you.